So one of the new units being introduced in the new Imperial Guard Codex is the Krieg Combat Engineer Squad. It's been the talk of the town for a bit when it was spoiled by having an absurdly low point cost of 35 points. For context, Acadian Infantry Squad, already known as a cheap efficient unit, is costed at 65 points. For that low of a cost, it would have been one of the best units in the game, and an auto-include in most competitive guard armies. This, however, was not allowed to stand, with Games Workshop soon announcing that the point cost of this unit would be doubling to 70 points for 5 and 90 points for 10. This raises the question, is it still worth it? In my opinion, no. This unit is overcosted at this point cost and will struggle to compete with many similar options. In this video, I will be breaking down why I believe the Krieg Combat Engineer Squad isn't worth taking and why other units fulfill its same role more effectively. In order to understand why I believe this, we need to know what the unit does. For 70 points, you get 5 models, 90 points for 10, 1 wound apiece, wearing carapace armor, which gives a 4+ save. They can be armed with either shotguns, which have 2 strength 4 shots out to 12 inches, hitting on a 4+, or they can take las pistols and trench clubs, the trench clubs getting 2 strength 4 attacks hitting on 4s. They can take 1 flamer for every 5 models, and the sergeant can be armed with a power sword, plasma pistol, or hand flamer. One model is also armed with a remote mine that once per game can be used on a unit within 12 inches at the beginning of your shooting phase. If you roll more than a 3+, the enemy unit takes D3 mortal wounds, or D3 plus 3 mortal wounds if it's a fortification or vehicle. The unit can use the grenade stratagem for free every battle round, which averages about 3 mortal wounds. Lastly, the unit scouts 6 inches, and a Krieg Command Squad can be attached to it. As I see it, this unit is competing for its role between the Kasrkin and Catachan jungle fighters. In my opinion, these are the units that it is the most similar to. I will now break down why I think these units do the combat engineer's job better. Let's start with the Kasrkin. As it stands, this unit currently costs 110 points for 10 models. These models are also wearing carapace armor and are armed with hellguns. These hellguns have strength 3, AP-1, and have rapid fire 1 with 24-inch range. They can replace 4 of them with special weapons, but can only take the same one twice. The special weapons are flamer, melta, plasma, volley guns, and grenade launchers. One can take a hotshot marksman rifle, which is 1 shot, strength 4, AP-2, and damage 3, with precision and heavy, and it has a 36-inch range. One troop can forgo his hellgun and take a hell pistol and melt a mine. This mine can be thrown at the beginning of any phase at a target within 3 inches of the bearer, and on a 2+, that unit takes D3 mortal wounds, or 2d3 if they're a vehicle. One model can take a Voxcaster, and the sergeant can take a power sword and plasma pistol or bolt pistol. All of these guns hit on a ballistic skill 3+, and each Kasrkin gets 2 strength 3 attacks in melee, hitting on a 4. Their special rules allow them to order themselves, meaning they're very flexible, and if you can spare an order, you can be under the effect of 2 separate orders. For example, take aim and first rank fire, second rank fire. This unit scouts 6 inches and can only be led by the Cadian Castellan. So why are the Kasrkin better than engineers? In terms of raw firepower, the Kasrkin have them beat handily. The engineers can only do damage if the enemy is within 12 inches, since all of their weapons have a range of 12. The Kasrkin, however, can shoot out to 24 inches and can even threaten enemies out to 36 with the marksman rifle. The guns the Kasrkins are armed with are also generally better than the shotguns. AP-1 is almost always better than the extra strength. These hellguns can also be affected by the first rank fire, second rank fire order, whereas the shotguns cannot. Arguably, most importantly, they have an extra ballistic skill, which means they hit about 17% more often. The difference between ballistic skill 3 and ballistic skill 4 is night and day, just ask any AdMech player. The hits don't stop coming, as the Kasrkin can carry twice as many special weapons as the engineer, and these special weapons are of better quality. I'm not going to break down the different profiles here, but Plasma and Melta are better than Flamers the majority of the time, and an argument can be made for the volley gun and the grenade launcher. They can also take Flamers if you really want them. I would say that the difference between the remote mine and Melta mine is mostly a wash. The remote mine can be used at a longer distance, but can only be used in the shooting phase. The Melta mine requires giving up a hell gun and can only be used within 3 inches, but can be used at the beginning of any phase, lending to more flexibility, including being able to be used defensively, and it goes off on a 2+ as opposed to a 3+. The remote mine is slightly more damage against vehicles averaging 5 mortal wounds, whereas the Melta is only 4, but overall they're basically the same. If I had to give an edge, I would say that it would go to the engineers for ease of use, but they're more or less the same. The main way the engineers are going to catch up damage-wise is by the use of the grenade stratagem, which averages about 3 mortal wounds. It can do as many as 6 and as few as 0, but usually you get about 3 wounds. If you use this stratagem, you cannot use your other weapons. This is not to be underestimated, but usually the increased ballistic skill, improved weapons, and better range will make up the difference. Against tough vehicles and super tough infantry, you'll see a lot more use out of the mortal wounds, but against most general target, the Kasrkins win out. In melee, assuming that you outfit the engineers with clubs, they'll be slightly better, but not to the point of making it worth it in my opinion. Both units can bully light infantry units like cultists and guardsmen. The difference is that Kasrkin can do it while keeping their good guns, whereas engineers need to give up their shotguns. In any case, neither unit is a melee unit, and should only be used in melee against other light infantry or in the most dire of circumstances. So the Kasrkin are more flexible in their self-ordering and do more damage against most targets. I think that if you want a hard-hitting scouting infantry, Kasrkin win pretty handily for only 20 points more. But what if you don't care about damage? What if you just need a relatively cheap unit to advance into the middle of the board, do actions or objectives, and then block or inconvenience your opponent? Do the engineers have a role to play there? Unfortunately, I believe that the Catachan jungle fighters have them beat in that role as well. So what do the Catachans do? For 65 points you get 10 models, or 120 points for 20, each with a 5+ save, carrying a lasgun. For each 5 models, you can replace a lasgun with a flamer, and the sergeant must take a las pistol and close combat weapon. They scout 6 inches, and their special rule allows them to get +1 to wound in melee when they charge or are charged. They're a battle line troop choice, and therefore have 2 OC and can be led by a Catachan command squad. So in terms of durability per points, 5 additional wounds is almost always better than a 4+ save. They have significantly more OC for the cost, at a whopping 20 compared to 5, making them way better at holding primary objectives. Their firepower is similar in shooting compared to the 5-man combat engineer, as they have twice the amount of flamers and twice the amount of normal guns. In melee, a +1 to wound is significantly better than the extra strength, with them able to wound even high toughness vehicles on a 5+. If you want cheap infantry to surge into the mid-bore, the Catachans have you covered and fill that role better. But what about character attachments? Does access to the Krieg Command Squad seriously increase the value of the combat engineers? Not really. Their unique rules are nice, allowing you to still be affected by orders and stratagems when battle shocked, but I don't think that it really changes how they're played. In addition, they lose access to their scout 6 inches as the command squad doesn't have the scouts rule. The Catachan command squad allows the Catachans to gain the assault keyword, which makes them even more mobile and gives them the ability to resurrect models with their med pack. And they don't give up the scout rule since the command squad also has the scout rules. The Cadian Castellan for the Kasrkin gives them the sustained fire rule on shooting weapons and allows them to fall back and shoot, allowing them to put even more damage out without being bogged down by charges. They would need to give up their scout rules, but I think an argument can be made for it. So what's the role of combat engineers? If you want elite foot-slogging infantry to put out a lot of damage, Kasrkin have you covered. If you want a cheap disposable unit to gum up the midfield and hold objectives and do actions, Catachans have you covered. Where do the combat engineers fit? In my opinion, at the current point cost with these rules, they'll be relegated to casual fun games. Now, there's nothing wrong with fun, flavorful games. In fact, it's my preferred way to play. I've run Cadians as my army through 10th, despite the fact that almost all the other infantry options were better. It's just sad to see one of the most typed units of this release doesn't appear to have a role that isn't better filled. But what do you think? If you think I missed something big, please let me know in the comment section. It's been a while since I've made a video, and I hope to get back to making them, so please let me know if there's any topics that you'd like to see me cover in the future. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon.